Some families use the holidays to punish each other. Someone comes home for Thanksgiving, steps into a house so cold it feels abandoned, and finds a note on the counter. We went on a cruise. You handle him. The person left behind isn't a chore. He's a dying stepfather shivering in the dark. And the cruelest part isn't the silence. It's the realization that sometimes family can be the place where a life is quietly set up to disappear. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see where our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next twist in this journey. Now, let's listen to him from the heart. My name is Keaton Rusk. I'm 30 years old, and I've spent my entire life in Toledo, Ohio, learning how to stand just slightly behind everyone else. In my family, I've never been the one out front. I'm the one who stays late to clean up what's left over, who fixes what breaks, who carries the weight when things get uncomfortable. I'm useful, reliable, necessary. But never, not once, have I heard the word proud spoken in my direction without hesitation. That word has always belonged to my older brother, Pierce. Pierce Rusk is the kind of man my parents like to talk about at dinner. A lawyer. Well-spoken. Confident. The kind of success that looks good when you say it out loud to neighbors or relatives. Whatever Pierce says is treated like a finished argument. Whatever he does is praised before the results even come in. My mother Marlene has a habit of comparing without ever raising her voice. She doesn't shout. She doesn't need to. Her favorite line is always delivered calmly, like a fact no one can dispute. You always make things more complicated than they need to be. It's the sentence she uses to end conversations, not start them. My father Gordon is quieter. He rarely takes sides out loud. But in this house, silence is a side. And his silence has always leaned toward Pierce. Our family grocery store sits right at the center of everything. It's not just how we make money. It's how my parents measure loyalty. Whoever keeps the store running is in their eyes keeping the family alive. And that person has always been me. I handle inventory, track what sells and what bleeds money, update price tags when suppliers raise costs, and deal with customers who think yelling louder means they're right. I'm the one who calls vendors to ask for extensions when bills stack up. I'm the one who stands behind the register when someone doesn't show. When the store is short a body or a solution, my name gets called. Pierce, on the other hand, shows up like a guest of honor. He drops in, offers an opinion or two, straightens his jacket, and leaves. My parents watch him the way people watch someone who doesn't belong to the mess. To them, that distance looks like authority. Outside the store, I had been building something of my own. Freelance marketing, branding, local campaigns for small businesses that couldn't afford agencies but still needed to survive. I wrote copy, designed promotions, ran social media pages, tracked engagement. I was good at it. Good enough that a few months before everything fell apart, I landed a contract that felt like a door finally opening. $40,000. A regional supermarket chain wanted me to overhaul their local advertising. Tight timeline, high expectations, but if I pulled it off, I'd have a serious portfolio piece. Enough money to stop scraping by. Enough momentum to leave Toledo and start fresh somewhere that didn't already know my place. I remember sitting in a downtown coffee shop with my laptop open, the contract pulled up on the screen. I could already picture what my life might look like when I wasn't orbiting the store anymore. My phone buzzed once, then again. It was my mother. Her voice cracked the moment I answered. The store was in trouble. Suppliers were threatening to cut deliveries. Bills were piling up faster than they could be paid. The bank had started calling. Then my father took the phone. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just said quietly, "I can't hold it together anymore." I knew what that meant. If I said no, I would be the son who walked away when the family needed him. If I said yes, the $40,000 contract would be gone. I called the supermarket representative that afternoon and backed out. I told myself it was temporary. That family came first. That once I saved the store, things would finally change. That they would see me differently. That night, I unlocked the office behind the store, opened the ledger, and started making a plan. As I turned off the lights, I promised myself I would do this all the way. No half measures. As I walked out, I heard my mother on the phone in the front of the store. Her voice was lighter than it had been all day, reassuring, confident. "Have Pierce come by," she said. "Once he's involved, things will be fine." I stood there longer than I meant to, listening already, understanding what that meant. Even as I gave everything up, they were still waiting for him to be the hero. I threw myself into the store like it was the only thing keeping us afloat, because it was. I rebuilt our marketing from the ground up. I wrote radio scripts and sat in a cramped studio recording ads that leaned hard on honesty, real prices, real people, a family store that still cared. I designed coupons and flyers and spent evenings walking neighborhoods, sliding them into mailboxes one by one. I replaced the faded sign out front and put up standees that actually caught the eye. I posted daily in Toledo community groups and kept our Facebook page active with promotions, photos, and replies. Behind the scenes, I cut what wasn't working. I dropped loss-heavy items, renegotiated terms with suppliers, rearranged shelves to push higher-margin products, and trained staff to greet customers like neighbors, not transactions. Slowly, it worked. Foot traffic picked up. A few suppliers came back to the table. The register stopped sounding desperate and started sounding steady. Cash flow loosened just enough to breathe. I waited for someone to notice. Instead, more work landed on my plate. My mother didn't thank me. She handed me invoices and asked me to review them. She told me to call another supplier. She asked me to just take a look at a staffing issue. My father didn't say much at all. His measure of success was simple: the store wasn't closed. Then one morning, a post went up in a local community group praising the new vision of the Rusk family business. It talked about strategy, branding, direction. It credited Pierce. I stared at the screen, recognizing every idea as my own. The slogans, the promotions, the tone. I asked my mother why his name was attached to it. She barely looked up. "He's a lawyer," she said. "People trust him." The truth landed clean and sharp. I wasn't being seen. I was being reassigned. A few days later, my parents called a family meeting in the cramped office behind the store, where the safe sat bolted to the floor. My mother spoke like the decision had already been made. Starting next month, Pierce would be listed as manager. He would oversee operations. Pierce adjusted his tie and glanced around the room like it belonged to him. "You did okay, Keaton," he said, polite enough to hurt. My father avoided my eyes and nodded. I stood there realizing I'd pulled a sinking ship back from the edge just so someone else could take the wheel. I told myself it was fine, that the store was alive. That mattered. That maybe this was how they'd see my value, quietly. I kept working. That's when Drew Callahan finally said what I'd been avoiding. We sat in a worn diner booth, vinyl cracked with age. He didn't soften it. "They don't love you for who you are," he said. "They keep you because you're useful." I didn't argue. I couldn't. A week later, my mother mentioned Pierce's upcoming wedding to Sienna Caraway. She said it casually, like an afterthought. The family wanted it to be impressive, something people would talk about. I heard the words and felt the familiar weight settle in. I already knew who they'd asked to carry it. It started with a list, a long, color-coded, borderline militant checklist that my mother handed me like it was a family heirloom. Venue, catering, flowers, music invitations, photography, decor. Everything. Not a request, not a favor, just a statement of fact. "You'll handle it all smoothly," she said, as she passed the list across the kitchen table like a court order. My father added almost as an afterthought, "Don't ruin your brother's day." No one asked if I had time, if I had money, if I had a choice. Because to them I didn't. That word choice doesn't exist in the Rusk household unless your name is Pierce. The list sat on my desk for 2 days. I kept telling myself I wouldn't touch it. I had other things, clients I was already behind on, bills I was ignoring, a mild stomach ulcer reminding me I hadn't eaten properly in weeks. But late one night, I opened my savings account. $10,000. That was my cushion, my escape hatch, my sanity fund. I wired half to the venue, and by morning the rest was gone, locked into deposits for caterers, DJs, florists, photographers. None of it refundable. I didn't do it for Pierce. I did it for the smallest chance that maybe, just maybe this time, my parents would look at me and see something worth being proud of. The next 2 weeks became a blur of appointments and spreadsheets. The venue was a quiet, converted barn on the outskirts of Toledo, rustic, charming, expensive. I read every clause in the cancellation policy like I was signing away my soul. I probably was. At the florist's, I negotiated packages that fit our budget, simple seasonal arrangements. But when Sienna arrived and glanced at the higher-tier display, she murmured, "Imported lilies would really elevate the whole look," and then said nothing more. Just a smile, as if the flowers would manifest on their own. The band was a local group that I managed to book for a decent price. Pierce called the next day, voice tight and annoyed. "I want something classier. This isn't prom night." When I handed the draft of the wedding invitation to my mom, she frowned at a small typo in the RSVP line. "This is careless," she said. "Not thanks for doing this. Just an indictment. I even booked a backup generator. Just in case. Because I knew one small hiccup would become my fault. That's how it always worked." One day at the venue, while finalizing layout with the coordinator, she made an offhand comment. "Your family mentioned you were covering all the expenses for this portion. That's really generous." I stopped mid-step. I never said that. I thought I was contributing, supporting. But they'd told outsiders I was paying for the entire thing. I asked my mother that night. She didn't blink. "What's the problem? We're handling it as a family. You're capable, aren't you?" Then came the upgrade requests. Emails from the photographer, DJ, even the bakery confirming changes to the package, more luxurious, more expensive. But I hadn't approved any of it. Pierce signed off, they said. I called him. "Just finish the job," he said. "Stop nickel and diming everything. You sound petty." Each time I tried to raise a concern, the narrative flipped. I was being difficult, ungrateful, dramatic. I met Drew at the diner again, the same cracked vinyl booth. He listened quietly, then folded his arms and said, "This is the store all over again. Just fancier wallpaper." Later that night, Pierce sent me another list upgrades for lighting, decor, plated dinner service instead of buffet. My mom followed with a text. "This is a big day. Don't embarrass the family." And just like that, the ground beneath me shifted again. Only this time I knew I wasn't just being used. I was being set up. There comes a point where the weight stops feeling heavy. It just feels endless. The wedding planning swallowed my life. Mornings at the store, afternoons chasing down vendors, evenings stuck behind a screen, troubleshooting menus and floor plans. My freelance clients stopped calling after I missed another round of deadlines. A few left quietly. One emailed a formal termination notice. But no one in my house asked how I was holding up. No one noticed. Or maybe they did and they just didn't care. One afternoon, I walked into the office behind the store to find Pierce taping his name onto the frosted glass door. Office of Management. P. Rusk, printed in bold. He had called a strategy meeting, which was really just him giving orders. While standing in front of the whiteboard, I used to brainstorm our promotions. I handed him a list of inventory issues and a marketing concept I'd drafted. "We'll go with something else," he cut in. "I've got a vision." Then he pitched word for word the same campaign I'd designed last fall. My parents nodded along like he was a genius. My mother clapped. My father stayed silent as usual, eyes fixed on the floor. I left early that day. A vendor had called about a last-minute upgrade. Pierce had authorized premium florals and imported centerpieces. Not just costly, but non-refundable. And the bill still had my name on it. When I tried to dispute it, the venue manager was polite but firm. "You're the financial contact on file. If the family changed the package, that's something you need to sort out." I went straight to the kitchen that night, holding the new invoices like evidence in a trial. My mom was pouring tea. Pierce was checking his watch. My dad stood in the corner like a shadow. "I didn't approve these upgrades," I said. "They're thousands more than the original quote." "It's your brother's wedding," Mom replied without looking up. "If you can't handle it, say so. Don't make this a problem." I turned to my dad. "Don't cause trouble," he muttered. And that was it. That's all I got. Sienna, for her part, was more graceful, more polished in how she turned the screws. During a tasting session, she showed me Pinterest boards of lavish centerpieces and crystal chandeliers. "I just think "This look is so timeless," she said. "Everyone's doing it." She didn't say I had to pay for it. She didn't have to. The implication hung there. If you cared about how this family is perceived, you'd make this happen. Then she slipped up. As she walked out with her phone still unlocked, I saw a message thread with Pierce. He promised it would be big, classy, nothing low budget. Of course he did. Because to him, it was easy, he wasn't the one footing the bill. That night I got an alert from my bank. A pending hold on a vendor charge I didn't authorize over $3,000 for a luxury rental company. I called the hotline. Yes, the rep said. This was done with your billing address. Last 4 digits match the card you have on file. I hadn't given that to anyone, but my family had access. My office was in the house, my wallet was on the kitchen counter. My trust had been wide open. I called Drew. He didn't ask what happened. He just said, "You're not just the errand boy anymore. You're the legal fall guy. That's where this is headed." He told me to start saving everything, every invoice, every email, every change order. He even offered to help organize it into a file. "You need proof," he said, "before they decide you're worth throwing under the bus." The next day, I found out there was a final planning meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. At our house. Everyone would be there, Pierce, Sienna, my parents. I wasn't told about it. Just stumbled across the email by accident on the shared desktop. Something told me this wasn't a meeting. It was a verdict. I started that morning differently. For the first time, I didn't just react, I prepared. I sat down with a pen and paper, opened my banking app, and wrote everything out in columns, what I'd already paid, what they were trying to pile on, and where I drew the line. $10,000. That was it. No more. When I finished, I stared at the number. I wasn't trying to be difficult. I wasn't even trying to make a stand. I just couldn't go further without completely losing myself. So when the venue manager slid a thick folder across the table at the final walkthrough and said, "We just need your signature here to confirm the upgrades," I took a breath and pushed it back. "I didn't request any upgrades," I said. His eyebrows went up. "Your mother and brother confirmed them last week. We've already ordered materials and scheduled the setup crew. If you don't sign, it'll be considered a late cancellation. There's a 70% penalty clause." My stomach dropped. But I didn't approve those changes. I didn't sign anything. They said you'd be covering everything. It's in the notes. And right on cue, Pierce walked in like it was choreographed. He clapped the manager on the shoulder and said with a laugh that felt more like a blade, "My brother just likes making things complicated." Then Marlene added as if I weren't even in the room, "He's always been sensitive. Don't mind him." In that moment, I realized something bone deep. They were painting me into a corner. Every sarcastic comment, every passive dig, it wasn't just cruelty. It was strategy. They were building a version of me that no one would take seriously. So when things fell apart, they'd already prepped the narrative. It's just him. He's unstable. He couldn't handle the pressure. I left that walkthrough with a pounding in my chest and a weight I couldn't shake. That night I pulled every contract I'd signed, reread every clause, every signature block. And what I found chilled me. There were clauses about penalties, about guarantees, about who held liability for final payment. And in more than a few, my name was the only one listed. My contact info, my address, my email. They'd used me more than I even realized. The next day, the bakery called about a delayed payment. Then the DJ emailed confused about a new sound package I hadn't heard of. It wasn't just the wedding spinning out, it was the family store too. We had supplier issues, stock shortages, a part-time cashier who'd quit with no notice, and Pierce. He fumbled everything. When vendors pushed back, he sent angry emails or ghosted them. When customers complained, he blamed the staff. Then he turned around and accused me of abandoning the store. Marlene stepped in like it was an emergency board meeting. "You need to be more involved," she snapped. "This family needs you to hold things together." Right. Now I was good enough. They didn't want me at the table, but they needed me under it, holding the legs steady. That's when Drew sent the screenshots. A post in a local Toledo wedding group. A vendor gushing about how generous the groom's brother has been with everything. A comment below it, I heard he's handling the entire budget. What a rock for his family. Pierce's name wasn't mentioned. Mine was. I didn't respond. I didn't share or react or confront. Instead, I just stared at the screen and felt the story lock into place. Outside the house, I was the good brother, the reliable one. Inside, I was disposable, convenient, quiet. That night, a text came in from Pierce. It wasn't a question, it was a list. Champagne upgrades, lobster edition, late-night taco bar, lighting package, another photographer just in case, and then the dagger. If you can't handle this, just don't show up tomorrow. You'll only embarrass us. 10 minutes later, Marlene followed up with a message of her own. All I've ever asked is that you don't ruin things. Do what's right. After the wedding, everything will settle. Settle no. That wasn't peace. That was prison. That was a muzzle and a leash wrapped in a bow. I looked at their words and I knew exactly what they meant. If I stayed quiet, they'd keep using me. If I spoke up, they'd blame me. So for once, I planned something of my own. And this time, it wouldn't be for them. I didn't sleep the night before the wedding. I was up tracking invoices, handling refund requests from a supplier we hadn't paid, fielding frantic texts from 2 employees threatening to quit. I was burnt out. But strangely, I wasn't panicked anymore. Something inside me had burned away. I kept asking myself, what if I disappeared right now? What would they actually do? Then the final wave hit. A vendor called to confirm last-minute additions. Seafood platter, imported wines, a second-tier photographer, an upgraded sound rig, all under my name. They weren't even hiding it now. Marlene had called directly, signed off, and sent the invoice to my email. That afternoon, I found Gordon in the kitchen, alone. He was organizing receipts like nothing was happening. Dad, I said, I need you to say something. He looked up. I've paid thousands. I've worked overtime. I've juggled everything they've thrown. But I'm not a punching bag. I need you to stand up. For once. He shifted uncomfortably. Don't make this bigger than it is. I'm not. It already is. He didn't respond. He just turned back to the receipts. That was his answer. Silence dressed in cowardice. And then came dinner. The final meal before the big day. The table was set, the food was lukewarm, and the air was a minefield. Pierce dropped the newest list like a king giving commands. We're adding one more live set at the reception, and Sienna wants the floral arch moved to the lake. Just make it happen. I didn't shout. I didn't flinch. I'm not paying another cent. Marlene's fork hit her plate. Her eyes were glass. This is your brother's wedding, she hissed. If you can't be part of it, I was. I already was. Then be gone. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The greatest gift for your brother's wedding is you vanishing from this family forever. Gordon didn't say a word. Sienna didn't look at me. It was done. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I stood. I walked to my room, packed what mattered: IDs, laptop keys, dignity. And when the door closed behind me, I swear it felt like silence finally had a sound. I drove. No destination, no map. Just away. But even then, they weren't finished. A voicemail from Marlene. Don't you dare pull anything before the ceremony. A text from Pierce Classic. You always ruin everything. They were ready. They'd rehearsed this too. If anything went wrong tomorrow, they'd say I cracked, that I sabotaged the family. But here's what they didn't know. When I pulled over that night, when I stared at the app on my phone, I saw it all laid out. The deposits, the invoices, the receipts in my name. They'd used me to build the whole thing. So the next morning, I'd use that same power to take it all down. I would call every vendor, every service I'd paid for, and I would cancel everything I owned. They didn't want me at that wedding, fine. Then they wouldn't have a wedding at all. I woke up before dawn in a cheap roadside hotel on the edge of Toledo, the kind of place where the carpet smells faintly of cleaner and the walls are thin enough that you hear trucks pass on the highway. My body was exhausted, but my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been for months. I sat up on the bed and opened my banking app. There it was, staring back at me in clean, unforgiving numbers. Nearly every dollar of my $10,000 was locked into deposits tied to the wedding: catering, flowers, music, decor. On paper, I was still listed as the primary contact, the responsible party, the one vendors would call if something went wrong. I whispered it out loud just to hear it land. They told me to disappear, so I'll disappear from everything I built. The first call I made was to the caterer. They'd barely opened when someone picked up. I confirmed the contract number, my name, the amount I'd paid, and the cancellation terms. My voice didn't shake. "I'm canceling the order," I said. "Effective immediately. I'm requesting the remaining balance to be refunded per the agreement." There was a pause. Then the woman on the line said carefully, "We received instructions late last night to upgrade several menu items. Some prep has already started." "Who gave those instructions?" I asked. She named my mother. I didn't argue. I didn't explain my family history. I asked her to email me a written confirmation of every change request, the timestamps, and who authorized them. Then I ended the call. The florist was next. "I need to cancel all arrangements," I said. "Bridal bouquet, table centerpieces, arch, everything." She asked if there was a problem. I told her there wasn't. I just needed written confirmation of the cancellation and the refund schedule. Before we hung up, she added, "For the record, your mother called yesterday asking us to push everything to a luxury package. Imported flowers, expanded setup." I asked her to include that in the email. That was when it fully clicked. They weren't just spending my money. They were spending it loudly, confidently, using my name as cover. The band came next. Then the sound and lighting company. I asked the same questions every time. What had been approved? Who approved it? What documentation existed? In more than one case, Pierce's name came up attached to upgrade requests while my contact information stayed tied to payment. By mid-morning, a pattern had emerged so clearly it almost felt clinical. They spoke. I paid. And if anyone came looking later, they'd be looking for me. I called the venue last. I couldn't cancel the space itself. The main contract wasn't mine, but I canceled everything that was. Decor upgrades, premium linens, supplemental setup items I'd arranged to keep things running smoothly. I asked for a complete changelog, every adjustment, who requested it, when it was approved. The manager sounded strained. "There's been a lot of last-minute activity," she admitted. "Mostly from your mother and brother." "And who did they list as financial contact?" I asked. There was another pause. "You," she said. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My mother screaming, demanding to know what I'd done. Pierce cursing, accusing me of sabotage. My father left a voicemail so cold it felt rehearsed, calling my actions shameful. I didn't answer. I saved every message. Then Pierce sent a text that crossed from anger into threat. He said he'd make sure everyone in Toledo knew who I really was. I sat on the edge of the bed and pictured the venue filling with guests. Empty tables, no music, no flowers, no food, staff scrambling, voices rising. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. If they wanted me gone, then they would stand in the spotlight without the support they'd taken for granted. By mid-afternoon, the story had already been written without me. Pierce posted in a local Toledo community group spinning his version of events. According to him, I was jealous, unstable, a resentful brother who couldn't stand seeing him happy. My mother joined in, calling me difficult, saying I'd always caused problems. People I recognized, neighbors, old customers from the store, added their own comments. Some took sides, some speculated. Most just enjoyed the drama. Pierce didn't stop there. He messaged people privately, hinting that my actions had left the family in debt, that all the contracts were under my name, that I'd left them to deal with the mess. That was the real danger, not the insults. The implication. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't defend myself. I did something else instead. I downloaded everything. Every email from vendors, every invoice, every change request, every voicemail. I organized it all into folders labeled by date and sender. Then I started planning my exit. Drew came by that evening. He didn't say much at first. Then he asked one question. Do you want to win, he said, or do you want to live? I told him the truth. I wanted to live. But I wasn't willing to carry their debts or their lies with me. Then leave clean, he said. Paper trails. No public fights. Let them talk. While I packed, a message came in from a supplier tied to the grocery store asking about a late payment. That was when I realized something else. Pierce had taken over management on paper, but when trouble hit, they still expected me to fix it. That was the line. I contacted a local agency that had once asked about buying my freelance client list. Within a day, the deal was done. I sold my active contracts and contacts for $25,000, enough to breathe, enough to go. I also pulled the $5,000 I'd invested in the family store using the paperwork I'd kept tucked away. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't warn them. I booked a one-way ticket to Santa Fe, New Mexico, somewhere far, somewhere quiet. Before I left, a letter arrived from my mother, handwritten. She said she was sick, that the family needed me, that this was bigger than old arguments. I read it once. Then I wrote back a single sentence. I wished her well. I said I wasn't coming back. I blocked their numbers, archived the emails, kept the files. For years I thought disappearing meant being erased. Now I know better. Sometimes disappearing is how you finally stay whole. I used to believe that family, no matter how flawed, no matter how sharp the edges, was something you endured. That if you just bent a little further, gave a little more, swallowed a little deeper, things would eventually smooth over. That they'd see your worth. That if you stayed long enough, loyal enough, quiet enough, they'd love you right. But what I've come to understand is this: some people only recognize loyalty as a currency to be spent. Not earned, not nurtured, just drained. And when they run out of things to take, they don't thank you. They accuse you. They turn the story inside out until you're the villain, until the bruises on your back from carrying them become proof that you fell, that you failed. That's what happened to me. They told me to disappear. And when I finally did, they panicked, not because they missed me, but because they lost their leverage, their safety net. The person who paid the bills, fixed their messes, smoothed the cracks in their reputation. In leaving, I learned something powerful: love that demands silence is not love. Responsibility without respect is not duty, it's manipulation. And family that only wants you as long as you're useful isn't family at all. It's a system, a machine. One that doesn't notice when you're bleeding, only when you stop producing. So I walked away. Not because I stopped loving them, but because I started loving myself enough not to be collateral in their dysfunction. I didn't leave in a storm of anger. I left in stillness. With receipts, with records, with a backbone that took years to build. I left with enough distance to see the truth clearly for the first time. I used to think starting over meant failure. That if I moved to a new city, changed my number, closed the door, I was running away. But now I know it wasn't escape. It was return. A return to myself. Because I'm not the roles they assigned me. I'm not the scapegoat. I'm not the problem solver on demand. I'm not the quiet one in the corner who always forgives. I am a whole person. I have boundaries. I have a future that doesn't need their permission to unfold. And in Santa Fe, every morning that I wake up without dread in my chest, every night I sleep without rehearsing my defense, I realize peace isn't earned through endurance. It's claimed through choice. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt guilty for pulling back, for saying no, for choosing yourself, I want you to know you're not wrong. You're not selfish. You're just learning how to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't bandage you if you were the one on the floor. Some endings don't come with closure. Some apologies never arrive. Some truths get twisted until you hardly recognize them. But none of that defines you. What defines you is what you choose next. And me, I chose the door. I chose the silence. I chose the long road out of town. And somewhere along that road, without even realizing it, I found something that all those years of sacrifice had nearly buried. I found myself. There's something about hearing a story like that, it lingers, doesn't it? Not because of the drama, but because deep down many of us know what it feels like to carry too much for too long. To be told we owe our silence, our energy, even our absence, just to keep the peace. And yet peace built on quiet sacrifice isn't peace at all, it's a slow erasure. What we've just heard isn't about revenge or bitterness. It's about reclaiming the right to exist fully without needing anyone's permission. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for ourselves and for others is to step away with grace. Not to punish, not to prove a point, but simply to breathe again. To draw a line where we were once only seen as a resource. These stories remind us boundaries are not walls, they're doors. And when one closes, we just might find the courage to open another. One that leads us back to who we really are. If something in this story touched you or made you reflect and you feel like sharing just a few words, if you'd like, we read every comment. And if you'd like to walk with us through more voices like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe. This is a space for stories, but more than that, it's a space for listening. Until next time, take care of your heart, and we'll see you again soon.